Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Detonation, where we're putting death out of business. All right, so today we have a very special episode. It's Mr. Kurtz. He's back again, and it's Richie. He's a very famous guy. We're going to let him introduce himself. He's one of these backroom people who's doing all the hard work in the science and Hollywood technology, all this cool stuff. All right, so first, let's just open up. Mr. Kurtz, who have you brought me this time, and how are you?
I brought Travis Ritchie, and I guess we're in the middle of a project that hasn't gotten too far yet, me and him, and got involved with him a few years ago on the Inspector project, which we'll be talking about some more, which has a lot of tie-ins with Doctor Who and Star Trek and Buffy and a lot of different shows. So he does some interesting projects out in LA. It's beginning of the Inspector was on Community. Whoever watched that show, he actually did the Inspector skit that was the Indian gentleman's version of a Doctor Who show. And that's kind of what got me interested in talking with Travis and trying to work on some projects with him. And he has a lot of interesting projects he's doing and has done. And he's going to be actually going off, I guess, to Japan, hopefully. But we can cross all our fingers and hope that he'll be going to Japan to work on some projects. And just a great all over, what would you say, talented man.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, Travis, introduce yourself and tell us about your work. Is your work, by the way, because just before this, Mr. Kurtz, he sent me a video, more machine than man. Is that yours?
Yeah.
I love that.
I
thought that was
produced
great.
that with a friend of mine, Mark W. Gray. That video actually just won both the Best Comedy Award and Filmmaker Select Award at the official Star Wars fan film contest last year. So that was very exciting. Mark W. Gray actually wrote and directed it. But he also and I have collaborated several times on things. I'm a writer, actor, producer. I've been acting for years. I've lived out in Hollywood for 16 years now. As John mentioned, I was in Community, Pretty Little Liars, a couple other shows that people didn't necessarily watch. And I've been producing for myself probably since the beginning. And I think it's very important as an artist, as any kind of artist, as an actor or a director or a writer, you should also be a producer and make your own content. So that's what I did. And John's big project that we're doing is, so as he mentioned, I was Inspector Spacetime on Community. And as an offshoot of that, we produced a web series that we couldn't call Inspector Spacetime, but we still wanted to do it. The fans wanted it, so we called it Untitled Web Series about a space traveler who can also travel through time. And when we decided to do a movie version of that, because we started to get a lot of star interest, we actually got Sylvester McCoy from Doctor Who. He was one of the doctors interested in being in the show. We decided that instead of getting donors for a web series, it would be better as a movie, and we should get investors for a feature film. So that's where we are now. We have several, in addition to Sylvester, we have Robert Picardo from Star Trek Voyager. He was the doctor on that, coincidentally enough. We have Mayim Bialik from Big Bang Theory, also an actual PhD in real life, so she's a doctor. That's the connection. And we have Nicholas Brendan from Buffy. Lots of genre star power involved already, and we haven't even finished getting our budget put together yet. So
wow,
we're actually quite a bit further along than most people on projects like that. Even really, all we need is the financing. Everything else is in place.
Wow, that sounds really, really cool. I'm probably the worst person to come and talk to about culture and community and Hollywood and movies. I know very little on the subject. I talk a lot about space and time and technology and U.S. Transhumanist Party and we talk a lot about politics. But I know that this stuff is very important. And what's your
the intersection is what's important, and yeah. I'm a giant nerd myself, but I'm also a huge science and technology nerd, and all those interests infuse themselves in my work. So there is some intersection.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like like all of these Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Doctor Who theme, the Community. I mean, all of these are very famous, very big productions in their own way. Do you have do you have a specific genre or a specific field that you like to play in? Do you like science fiction, or do you like what do you like more?
Yeah, so I'm a comedian by nature too. So I grew up with comedy as kind of a base of everything, and then a sci-fi on top of that. So and science fiction is definitely my passion over, say, science fantasy, which is kind of more what Star Wars and Doctor Who are. But I love Star Trek, which is actually kind of based in our real world and an extrapolation of where we as a society are expected to be in a few hundred years. I like that a lot. That speaks to me a lot more.
What do you think of a TV series like Red Dwarf? Do you enjoy that sort of comedy?
I do. I love Red Dwarf. I love that British humor. A lot of my inspiration, if you watch Untitled web series, or if you just were to search for Inspector Spacetime web series, you'd probably find it. You'll probably recognize a lot of the humor from British inspirations like Red Dwarf, or especially Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Those kind of that material is very influential to me.
Well, that's really good to hear. I also do enjoy Douglas Adams. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Restaurant at the End of the Universe, and others. It's a very crude humor, not crude, but because it messes with your mind, because he goes to places that are uncomfortable, and then he pushes further, but he brings you to a space that's really, really comfortable, and it's fun, right? Like Marvin the Robot, or
I love that robot.
Yeah. There's the concepts are so big and large. So let's talk about your project, which you're doing. All these people are jumping on board. What type of project is it? Just what type of theme? I don't know. I'm not one of these TMZ guys who knows how to ask this. I asked Sophia Skyes, who's another Hollywood person. She said I have to subscribe to her Instagram, and she was very, very secretive about the whole thing. I don't know where to go with it. But what can you tell me about your project? What type of project is it?
Yeah, it's a feature film. So most of what I've done to this point has been short form, either sketch comedy online, or even short films, or even television. But this is my first feature film project, and as such, we've tried to make it so that it's fairly modest in scale. So our budget's only $250,000. I should say our minimum budget. We would take up to $1 million to make this movie, and you would see various improvements in probably production value for that money, and also distribution. But we can make it for $250,000, which is microscopic for a feature film these days. Yeah. And but for that, we actually have gotten a financial projection from Slated.com, where we have our listing, and they did a financial analysis of the project a couple of years ago when we first started out, and they expected us to make about $4 million in revenue worldwide on that $250,000 budget, with the stars that we have attached. And so the idea now is to go out with, we have the actors attached, we have our packages that we send to potential investors, we have we had a proof of concept short film that we put together so that people can actually see what the movie will look like, how good it is. And then once we have our budget, we go out and make the movie. We have distribution lined up already. And then we have a plan to do convention circuits and festivals, and basically recoup the money, repay the investors. And then ideally, we have a multi-film plan in place so that we would do a sequel and another sequel after that, and each one would be bigger than the last.
So are you starting at episode 4, or?
Kind of. We did the web series already, so people can actually go and get an idea of what this universe is. And our equation for the universe is, it's a Doctor Who parody essentially, but the way we play with parody, me and my writing partner who wrote the movie with me, is that we like to play with tropes rather than, say, take a scene from a movie and make fun of that. Like, like the scary movies or movie or Airplane, where you see a scene and you play with you making fun of that scene. We're more broad strokes. So and the tricky thing is Doctor Who doesn't actually take itself that seriously anyway. So Doctor Who kind of has like a 30% funny, maybe 70 or 60% serious in its makeup. So we kind of like flip that. So we are about 60% funny and about 40% good actual sci-fi storytelling. And we really, that's very important to us. So so it's a sci-fi comedy essentially. Think Galaxy Quest, but for Doctor Who.
Ah, yes, Galaxy Quest. That was funny, and then it didn't bomb. It resonated with the audience. People knew it was funny. The action, for example, the action in the minefield is something that I won't forget. It was fun. It was even though it was a funny movie. You were on the edge of the seat because you were kind of like involved in the process of that movie.
Exactly.
So that kind of worked. And by the way, Slate.com just sent me an email and they said if Mr. Carrots and Steele Archer are allowed to go on that movie, you're going to get an extra $1 million in revenue from the names. So nice. I don't know about you, Mr. Carrots. What do you think? Should we help them out?
Sure, if it'll get Travis $1 million, that'd be great.
We got big names. We got big names down here at Dead Nation, so we'll bring our star power all the way over there.
Well, we do have roles. We wrote roles into the movie specifically for potential investors that we could give them. Like one of my investors already, the first one who came on board for about $55,000, she gets a role in the movie for her investment. So we have several of those.
Cool. I think I'm already in for a small role, but if we help you get $1 million, I think you could put me in for a bigger role.
We'll make something. We'll definitely write something. That's the good thing about being the writer is I have control over such things.
Well, don't forget, Steele, the person that said they could give him $1 million. We can make sure they get a role too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mr. Carrots, if we do your hair up nice and and you go to the gym for like 5 seconds because you're already pretty buff, I mean, you'd look like Han Solo, like a Han Solo type character. You could fit in.
That's not too bad. I thought maybe I'd end up not shaving and look more like a Wookiee, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
When I get up in the morning, I make noises like a Wookiee. You grumble. At my age, I start grumbling and groaning. But I had a question, Noah.
Yeah.
So for Travis, science has influenced you a lot. What are your favorite things about science and stuff that have influenced you feel?
Well, I'm a huge space nerd, and I love the idea of space exploration. I think near constantly about the dichotomy of the Drake equation and the Fermi paradox, and how there's almost certainly life out there, but why haven't we seen it? And so I do a lot of pondering about that. But medicine and the transhumanist movement actually is an interesting thing that I've contemplated, because I think as a species we've kind of stopped evolving, and we kind of did that to ourselves. And I'm not necessarily I don't know about advancing, but I definitely think we need to stop the regression a little bit. And so things like genetic engineering and the ability to correct issues that evolution would correct on its own is now in our hands. And so stuff like that is interesting to think about.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up transhumanism, because this is the sort of transhumanist channel. And I agree. I think we have to take charge of our own evolution. We've been evolving on our own now for, well, could be up to 1 billion years, but let's say at least minimum 300 million years, a natural process of evolution. And then we've hit this sort of ceiling where nature doesn't really want to take us any higher, or can't, or whatever.
It's not that nature doesn't want to. It's just that evolution is the adaptation to your environment. And we as a species no longer adapt to our environment. We adapt our environment to us.
That's a good point.
That's the real big difference.
Yeah.
Well, plus through medicine, we keep probably genes in the mix that people would have died from.
Yeah,
They don't die from it now because we keep them alive through better medicine.
exactly,
So
which
that's
is not a
another thing
bad
also.
thing.
No, it's not a
But
bad thing, but
I don't think we would. I don't think anybody would argue that we want to have, things like muscular dystrophy and multiple sclerosis as bigger elements of our gene pool. That's an unintended side effect of our improved medical system. So.
Yeah, and like, it's kind of interesting because you're a film guy, so I'm just trying to think of a film analogy, and Space Odyssey 2001 comes to mind. At the very end of the film when the baby is born into space, into this new environment. It's quite a chilling, reminder of this environment complex that, we have been changing the environment to suit our own needs, and we've hit the peak of that on Earth anyway. But yeah, there's this next thing called space, and that movie leaves it an open question as to what is the next evolution of people after after they get out and colonize the universe. Are you into space exploration and colonization? If so, what are you more excited about? What do you think, Moon or Mars?
Oh, absolutely. I think that I agree with a lot of scientists like Stephen Hawking that space exploration is not only a good thing but essential, because if we are to ensure our continued existence as a species, we need to be able to go out into the cosmos and be able to create colonies that can then in turn create colonies and so on. Otherwise, any number of things like a disaster on Earth could destroy us, or an alien race coming, and hunting us down could destroy us. We need to be able to get out there and, just be able to propagate our existence. Now, as far as where to go first, I mean, the moon is closest, and the moon has all sorts of resources for us. There's water on the moon. There's hydrogen. We could set up a moon base in order to, as a jumping off point to other places in the solar system and beyond. I'm really excited about the concept of a space elevator. It's such an out there concept, but if we could actually get it to work, we would decrease the amount of the cost to get things into orbit by about 100th, and so that would be very exciting.
yeah, the gentleman that did win the election to be the candidate for the Transhumanistic Party, he had worked with people on the space elevator project, so that's a great tie-in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's actually an X Prize for the space elevator that sets new and harder goals every year. The biggest trick for the space elevator is still the material that we make the cable out of, because we don't have anything that would be strong enough for the cable to actually support its own weight. So that's the trick.
Yeah, and there's all this talk about carbon nanotubes that will be able to maybe support that weight and that distribution. There's a slingshot notion. What about where to put the elevator? You put it out in the middle of the sea, or do you put it in the middle of the city? What happens if it goes wrong? How long will it take for each trip? It's going to take hours apparently, because it's kilometers and kilometers and kilometers, even from a state. Would probably be from sea level. Yeah, but you're right. Elon Musk, what he's doing with the rockets is really cool. And I mean, when you see those things land, everybody cheers and stuff. But yeah, the elevator is definitely the golden ticket to infinite exploration and colonization.
Yeah, and I think Elon Musk's SpaceX project and others of its ilk are probably the next closest thing that we can get to. Reusable rockets is essential to bringing cost down. And when they did the BFG rocket last year, where he sent his car into space and they landed the two boosters at the same time, I literally cried. It was so amazing to watch.
Yeah, and we all watched the evolution of that, where it was just a disaster after disaster almost, and then it was starting to work slowly, and then woohoo, it all came together at the end, and everyone was excited. Sorry, Mr. Carrots, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, it's funny, I was thinking here, last time I had talked to, if you know, Emilio, that was on Heroes, and now he's on This Is Us. Last time I saw him, I was telling him about Explore Mars, and he was funny. He says, He says, John, what do you want? Actors in space? You don't need actors in space. And I thought it was funny he said that to me because, he's busy acting. But I think once we get to other planets also, people are still wanting entertainment. So there is a place for artists and actors and stuff once we go to the planets because people want their culture and they want entertainment. So
well, I think more than we can always beam entertainment to space. I'm not so worried about that. But what I am interested in is the interpretation of those experiences. And so a lot of times you need an artist or a poet or someone to take the experience that we as mankind are seeing and interpret it into a way that can be expressed to everybody else. So everybody else who can't go into space. That's why that billionaire who was buying the first trip around the moon bought 12 tickets and is offering them all to artists. That's why.
I was also thinking, one of the things when I used to always go out and do a lot of interviews, I used to interview comedians and musicians and stuff. But a lot of them say, as far as the comedy and as far as their songs, if they do it about something they know, like you're saying, if they actually travel to space themselves and they write or perform something about it, when it's something that means something to you, you can give more to it when you give it out to people. So that's a very true thing in all forms of art,
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
I'm
losing a lot of my light. I'm so sorry, guys.
That's okay. We can hear you.
Oh yeah. It's all good. We're used to this. Would you ever accept doing stem cells, or would you ever accept would you accept doing stem cells yourself?
I'm not sure kind of what you're asking. Would I accept a stem cell therapy for something?
Sure. Would you go to a treatment plant, a clinic and get stem cells? I mean, would you? My basic question is, there's these body hackers, there's people who are interested in health, they're interested in transhumanism, stem cell research, stem cell therapy is becoming a thing. Would you ever take the plunge into that world, or would you wait around and say, I need more evidence, I need to be safer, I need it to be approved by the FDA,
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. I'm not an adventurous person as far as my health is concerned. I would like to, but I think that stem cell research has actually shown quite a bit of promise, and in many different respects. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a biologist, and so I guess I can't speak professionally to that, but. I think things like stem cell research for tissue regeneration, and also for we talk about immunotherapy for cancer, stuff like that is all very new, but all seems to be very promising. And if there's something that were wrong with me where I don't have a solution, well, then I would probably want to test whatever is available.
It's a question because sometimes people they're adverse to it, or they say, because they're interested in some of these ideas, but they say, I would never do it on myself, or 20 years time, or there's a whole variety of answers on that one, and I was just interested to see, because a lot of people are happy for these treatments and therapies and stuff to sort of be tested on everybody else, but they're very hesitant when it comes to actually doing it on their own. And I was just playing with you.
I think, once Travis gets his $1 million for the Inspector 2 movie, and he becomes a lead star performer, he can get the therapy so he can live forever, and he can be our leading man for the rest of the century. How's that?
Yeah.
For the rest of you.
What do you think about longevity? That's a good one. What do you think about longevity? Are you okay with people living open-ended durations?
Oh yeah, I certainly intend to live forever, and so far so good.
I tell you what, Travis, do you have any other interesting projects you could tell us about? I mean, we talked about the Inspector a little bit. What else might you want to get out here before we run out of time?
Well, I'm a lot of my writing is getting geared towards television pilots, and I have a couple of really interesting ones that I'm working on. I can't really talk about on the air. But I would love to get back to, say, Robot Ninja Gay Guy, which was my very first web series. We have a plan for that show that is very interesting from a sci-fi point of view. Like, it's a sitcom, and so there isn't a lot of, on the surface, you just think of it as three roommates living together, and that's essentially what the show is. But we go way deeper, and we have a plan for a robot, for example, to explain where he comes from, and it has ramifications that affect essentially the whole world. But it's really cool. So I'd love to get back into that, but all that takes money. So I think the movie is a better, yeah.
Now that you're on here with Steele, he's going to get us all the funding we want, as long as you make me and give him parts, right, Steele?
Yeah, that's totally correct.
What I really need is a benefactor. I need to, like Leonardo da Vinci had his benefactors. That's what I need. I need a patron.
Yeah, it's and that's what Hollywood is about, isn't it? Sort of Hollywood film idea. It's you take a risk, and you it's kind of almost. Is it almost like gambling? Is it gambling? Is it almost gambling? Calculated
it's investing,
gambling?
and investing is always has a share of risk, as you know. So you don't invest in anything without knowing what the risks are. And so so for instance, with our movie, I try to give as much information as I can to potential investors, and then they have to decide, is that return on investment worth the risk of something going wrong? Like I don't know. So it's possible. Let me, for example. We get our budget, so we get our $250,000. We greenlight the movie. We make it. Something disastrous happens. I die, or
you can't
something
do that.
happens.
We're gonna keep you alive forever now. You remember?
I'm just saying, hypothetically, of course, I'm not going to die. But you never know, and so you just have to know that. The way I think of it is that if we get the budget, chances are very good you'll at least get your money back, and chances are reasonable that you'll make money. And so that's the way I think of it. If I had the money to invest, I certainly would. And so that's what I'm looking for.
It's like in
in
Star
other
Wars.
people.
It's like in Star Wars in The Phantom Menace, when I've seen the behind-the-scenes thing of that. I don't usually watch behind-the-scenes, but I decided to watch behind-the-scenes of The Phantom Menace because I wanted to see what Lucas was thinking when he was making that movie, because I kind of half love that movie, half hate it, half love it, half hate it. I don't know. I'm undecided. So I decided to actually watch
Very
the behind-the-scenes.
generous of you.
Yeah, and during that movie, they were in Djibouti, they were in North Africa somewhere, I don't know. But there was a sandstorm that came through and wiped out the whole pod race scene set. It was a huge disaster, and I mean that was just an unforeseen event that wiped out one of the whole scenes, and like hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment, and everything went flying, and the trucks got filled up with sand, and it was just a huge disaster. I mean, Star Wars had so much money at that point. I don't think it really impacted the overall thing. But yeah, there are problems, especially on film sets. Because you've got human capital, you've got real capital, you've got the financial, capital and financial. It's a big undertaking, and I commend you, and I wish you all the best in this. And I think well done. I mean, wow, that's cool.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, it's a natural progression from what I've been doing. I think I've been producing for long enough that I'm ready to take on this bigger step. But yeah, it is definitely way bigger than anything that I've done before. But it's just the way we as people work. We always want to do something bigger. You never want to be static, right?
It's the reverse of Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg does these big films, and then he goes down and makes these pet project films for fun. But yeah, you've got to go the other way. You've got to go up, and climb the ladder.
Exactly.
I was thinking the great thing about doing movies, doing skits, doing podcasts, and little shows yourself. Whenever it involves something science-based, it helps motivate people, people think about science, and I think that's a great thing. Even the skit about the ninja, the robot, and a gay guy. That's people having to live. 3 different types of people having to work everything out. One of them is a robot. So
Yeah.
that's gives people the thoughts of, you know, AI and stuff and dealing with it, and it provokes people's thinking about science, even if it is tongue in cheek, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of my early inspiration came from Star Trek, and I think that's true of a lot of actual scientists, people who are now rocket scientists and doctors and whatnot, got their inspiration from watching Star Trek as children. So I hear that story all the time.
I think now's the time for more sci-fi, more space films. Because we have this momentum in the science world. Elon Musk is doing his thing. There's rocket production. People are energetic, and you know, there's even room for this comedy stuff. Absolutely, 100%. I think now is the time for everything space related. Let's go big on the space and not let it die out. Let's not have another 1990s or whatever when space sort of just went dark and everybody sort of gave up. Let's put the energy on the cultural front, on the science front, on the political front, on the economic front. Let's really do this for real this time, and I think we can have a good fun. And you know, if you're out there on the cultural front lines, commend you, sir.
Yeah, after everybody sees his next movie, The Inspector one, everybody's want to travel through time and space. So
yeah, hell yeah.
Well, time travel's a little bit different, and that's what this is. Certainly more of a science fantasy movie, but with when time travel gets into the equation. But we do try to look at time travel in a more, realistic way. We think a lot about it. It's not, we certainly don't look at our time travel willy-nilly.
Well, we've got to run...
wiggly wobbly.
Yeah. I've got another guest, the chairman of the USTP. He's lined up. He's ready to go. So I've actually got to run to that. But hey, thanks.
Maybe Travis can give us information how people can look up his projects and go home if they wanted to.
That's the next step. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, just the Inspector Chronicles. The easiest way to find us is on slated.com, and that's a great way for people, potential investors, to actually see what the project has going for it. So slated.com, and it's called the Inspector Chronicles.
Cool. Yeah, send me that link, and I'll dump that in the description of this video, and people can look it up. So click below if you want to look that up. Potential investors as well, because we have lots of investors who watch this program. So absolutely, fantastic, and all the best and all the best work. You know, I endorse heavily what you're doing, and you know, I'll have a look. I've only got Australian dollars, so not American dollars, so I don't know, but we'll see.
There must be some way to convert it. All right, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. That's Detonation, putting death out of business. That's Mr. Kurtz and Travis Ritchie, right? So thank you very much, both of you. It's been a fantastic show. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.